Hey, welcome to One Horse Town, a video interview that we're trying to do to help resource would-be church planters or pastors of small towns and rural places. And today we're fortunate to have on the go this morning Dieter Paulson. Dieter is church planter pastor in Scottsboro, Alabama at Redeemer Presbyterian Church. Dieter, it's great to have you on here.
Thanks so much, Corey. It's good to be with you.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Dieter and I met. Well, I've heard your name for years, but I think we officially at a retreat for rural small town pastors in North Georgia. And I have loved every time I've gotten to be with you and your wealth of information and experience that you've had, and just some of the ways, just watching how God has worked in and through you there has been encouraging. I know it hadn't been easy, and it's not,
Yeah.
but I kind of want to delve into that a little bit. But first, tell us about yourself. Where you grew up, how you got to where you are. How were you led to church planting, especially small town church planting in Scottsboro?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and dad was an engineer and traveled a lot with his sales, and my mom's a nurse. And so first 8 years of my life was basically living in rural Pennsylvania outside of Philadelphia. And, you know, my dad got transferred to Charlotte, North Carolina when I was 8. They came under the gospel teaching, and came to Christ when I was 8. I began attending Charlotte Christian School, so I went to the same school as Steph and Seth Curry, and I played basketball there before those guys. And that's my only claim to fame. But that I said, me and my peers set a foundation of mediocrity upon which those guys built their careers. Um, anyways, um, but yeah, it was at Charlotte Christian that I heard the gospel. My parents, church that we were attending was really gospel centered, and we ended up in an EPC church eventually, which I really understood the Reformed faith and embraced that. And so yeah, at 15, I came to Christ pretty radically after a football injury, and I knew right away that I was a sinner, and I didn't know Christ personally, but I you know, I believe that He had created me for His glory. And I mean, right away, I just had a sense of a call to be in ministry and be a missionary. And so, without knowing the term evangelist, I quickly became an evangelist and started. I told my mom I didn't want to go to the Christian school anymore. I wanted to go to public school. I wanted to share Christ with people, and started Bible studies in my convertible Volkswagen Beetle. We'd have men's groups, Bible studies in grocery store parking lots, and that kind of morphed into having guys over, for Bible studies and those kind of things. And I got into music, and so I started playing in Christian bands and wanted to send the message out, through that. So it was it was terrible music, I'm sure. 80s hair metal, or hard rock. And yeah, I had an afro mullet. It was a new hairstyle back then, and I think
One Bad Pig was on your playlist, right?
amen. Right. One
Yeah.
bad pig. Nice. That's funny. That blast from the past there. Um, but I went to college at East Carolina University. Um, really, with a hope to become a physical therapist so that I could be a missionary physical therapist and use physical therapy as a means to share the gospel with people. And I always had done mission trips since I was 15, all over the world. Romania a couple times, Dominican Republic, ended up going to Turkey, um, and Newport Beach, California, through Campus Crusade, and was discipled in Campus Crusade, and was a student leader at East Carolina. Love sharing my faith on the campus, and earned the title of campus man because I kind of knew everybody. but I love people. I've always loved people and always had a heart for people, and just love making people feel welcome in the world, and valued and dignified. And so obviously with the gospel emphasis too, of just leading them to the Lord who made them, and who delights in them, and wants to see them transformed and redeemed for his glory. And so, in my sophomore year at East Carolina, I was at a Ligonier conference, and was walking past Luder Whitlock, who was the president of RTS at the time. I had only met him one time before in passing, because through my brother-in-law who was in seminary. But anyways, he looked down at me and he said, "We need to talk, young man." And I'm thinking, oh shoot, was I just talking during that J.I. Packer seminar and being rude or something? And I'm getting ready to get rebuked. But no, I mean, he pulled me aside in a room and he said, "I want to talk to you about the calling of God." And I'm like, what? Because I'd been really praying about physical therapy school, because my heart had been kind of waning on
Wow.
that. And so sure enough, I not long after that, someone said, "Dieter, have you heard from physical therapy school?" And I said, "No, but I honestly don't care, because even if I got in, I wouldn't go, because I really believe God wants me to go to seminary and become a pastor, and um,
Wow.
minister in the church, and communicate God's love to people through the gospel in that context." And so yeah, I got waitlisted for PT school, became a philosophy major, graduated philosophy degree, and a major in philosophy and minor in religious studies, and then headed on to RTS Jackson for a Master of Arts in Marriage and Family Therapy and Master of Divinity, and continuing to get to know myself in that way. And on the way down there, basically I had met my future wife, and so while I was there my first year, we ended up getting married in '99, and I finished in 2002 with 2 masters from RTS Jackson. And from there, I went into youth ministry, because I'd done that for 5 years as an intern in Jackson, and loved ministering to kids, doing discipleship based youth ministry. But, you know, out of seminary, I went to Fairhope, Alabama, and with a short stint there at a church. Um, the Lord led me to a smaller church that was a church plant, that was losing their pastor to National Guard call up for, I think, Operation Iraqi Freedom or something like that. So basically, my mom nudged me and said, "I think God's going to use you at this church." And came on as stated supply of that church, pastored there for a year, um, and then came on full time as a hospice chaplain the next year, because I had done a little dabbling in part time hospice chaplaincy while I was a small, church pastor or state supply pastor there in Daphne, Alabama. So I became, full time hospice chaplain in 2005. I think that's right, or 2004 technically. And so I did hospice chaplaincy in 2 counties, Mobile and Baldwin counties, for about 5.5 years. And God used that to shape me more as an evangelist in really different kind of contexts. I mean, all the way from very rich to extremely poor, but really humbled me and taught me a lot in that context. Had tons of preaching opportunities. I preached more funerals than most guys do in their lifetime as a hospice chaplain. And I mean, those are incredible evangelistic opportunities, as you well know. And so saw a lot of fruit in the gospel ministry through chaplaincy. Started a volunteer program, bereavement program, and I mean, our hospice just exploded in growth. And but they basically couldn't afford me anymore, because my family was growing, and I had to kind of say, "Okay, Lord, what's next?" And a buddy of mine from Fairhope that I had poured into, who'd gone into seminary and landed in South Carolina, said, "Dude, there's a church up here that's right in your old stomping grounds that needs a pastor, and I just think you'd be great." And so I applied for it, and I pastored there for about 7 years outside of Charlotte. It was more of a revitalization work, and but it did kind of just continue to ground me, I think, in some of the things that I, was learning as an evangelist and as a pastor. Got to do a lot of outreach things there, and started even part-time hospice ministry in the community as another form of outreach. And then I took a church planting leadership class at RTS Charlotte under Tom Hawks. Alan Foster had been after me for a couple of years, and then Tom Hawks as well, saying, "Hey, we think you're a church planter. You need to probably consider this." And it took a little while for that to resonate, but in 2016, I called a friend, Wilson Shirley, who had known for about 20 years, and said, "Hey, man, you got any leads on any positions?" And he said, "Well, we're looking for a church planter," which my initial thought was, golly, that sounds like an interesting position for somebody, but maybe not for me. And God just kept haunting me with it and waking me up at 4 a.m. What would I do as a church planter in that particular small town, but in the Chattanooga greater area there in Alabama? And it was right where my wife and I had kind of said that would be really proximal for being close to my family and her family, and God and his providence opened the door. And so 2017, I landed in Scottsboro, Alabama, town of 15,000, maybe about 2,000 or 3,000, maybe go to church.
Right.
Very interesting Appalachian community, but no PCA presence, very little Presbyterian presence. There's a Cumberland church, a couple Cumberland Presbyterian churches, but nothing in the realm of PCA presence in the county, even, which is about 55,000.
Right. And I mean, that's how far is that from Chattanooga? I mean, that's a little distance from Chattanooga.
It's about an hour. So about an hour from Huntsville downtown, about an hour to Chattanooga.
Right. Right.
So
How would you describe Scottsboro? Every small town's different. What's uniquely different about Scottsboro?
I think Scottsboro is a unique town. I mean, it's on the Tennessee River and Lake Gunnersville, so great fishing area. I mean, it's where the mountains meet the lakes. Basically, you still got the mountains of Appalachia there coming down, but you've got the Tennessee River, and the River Valley area, where we're basically in the Tennessee River Valley. Scottsboro is a largely manufacturing town, a blue collar town, but there is a lot of wealth in terms of, people who live on the lake, business owners, people that maybe live in Huntsville who want to live on the lake, who just don't mind the commute. It can be very beautiful, for them to live out there. But there's just two extremes of very impoverished, struggling people, and then very educated, wealthier people. It's a town where I think people are very tight knit with their family and very loyal to their family. This is our family church. This is what we do on Sundays.
Is that mostly
Um,
the locals from the area? When you describe that, is that mostly the locals rather than those who've moved in?
yes,
Mm.
yeah. The locals are very homogenous. They want their own to move back there. Um, and there has been a few generations of that happening where their kids go away to school and then come back and maybe get involved with a family business or just live in the community and work and because their family's there. And so, in many ways, it's they're tight knit in that sense that they have, possibly three generations that are right there in the town. And when you have that dynamic, those people usually are hanging out with their family on the weekends or in the evenings, their extended family too. And so it's made a guy like me a little jealous where my parents are 8 hours away in Virginia now. And I'm like, man, it would be nice to live close to family and be nice to have that. But I don't know, for me, living away from family gives me that greater desire to connect with, my neighbors and those around me because we need people. And So in Scottsboro, we're like the fourth attempt to plant since 19 in the 80s, I guess. Yeah, 1980s.
Wow.
And so I'm the first pastor to come live in the town and actually seek to plug in. And I coach sports. I've worked at the local pregnancy center on the board, and then became part-time executive director. Um, you know, just just going to the gym, going to different places, and those are my fishing ponds basically to connect with people. And
I love that.
but to
But
just
the other attempts were from the outside.
yes,
Huh.
yes.
Mhm.
So pastors from Briarwood and Birmingham would come up, or guys come over from Huntsville, to help start Bible studies. And God in His providence, just people would come, and then they would get transferred out to other places. Scottsboro does not have a lot of industry that is growing. Um, I mean, yeah, we're getting a Chick-fil-A now, woohoo! But getting Whataburgers and Chick-fil-A's and TJ Maxx and Publix, those are good, but we've always had a struggle there with workforce because there's not a growing industry base, really well-paying jobs, and so they're trying to build that region up. As defense contractors could build there within a 60-mile radius of Huntsville, and be proximal. But I think the labor base, workforce base, has presented itself as an issue for industry not to come. So Scottsboro has become more of a bedroom community of Huntsville. Maybe not so much Chattanooga, but it feels more Huntsville proximal. And it's very easy to get from Huntsville to Scottsboro. So actually, in May, we downsized and we moved towards Huntsville on the highway. Um, and there's just not a lot of houses for sale in Scottsboro and those kind of things. So, but to me, it seems like a lot more people are moving in from out of town and around the Scottsboro greater area, because it's country living, and taxes are low, and you got lake life, mountain life. You got Huntsville not far, Chattanooga not far. So in so many ways, there's attractive things about it because you're not out in the middle of nowhere.
How have you been able to bridge the gap between the blue collar folks and the white collar folks that have moved in? Is that a difficult bridge to gap? And has that been an issue at all?
It is an issue because the white collar people, they pretty much stick to themselves, and when I say that, they're not necessarily doing all this stuff with each other. But if you're living on the lake, I mean, and you got your family nearby, extended family nearby, you go to work, you come home, you're hanging with your family, you're enjoying the lake, fishing, hunting, you know, back to work on
Right.
Monday. And now where the blue collar people, I mean, they're just trying to make it, they're working at the plants, doing shift work, um, you know, possibly, 4 days a week, 12 hours a day. They're working really hard. I mean, these people work really hard. They have great work ethic. A lot of people have 2, 3 jobs,
Mm.
um, especially the white collar folks. I mean, there's a lot of them that are working multiple businesses, and um, the bridging of the gap really, to me, is just trying what I can to connect with people and communicate what we're doing. And so, like our discipleship groups, before we launched, you know, had guys from all the spectrum. And I mean, it was often hard to get shift workers in there too, just because of the way that their schedule is. Um, but basically, the gospel is what bridges the gap,
Mm.
and discipleship, and the need for community. That's brought these guys all together. So our men's discipleship group, even our church. I mean, we've got retirees, disabled people that are, some are in their, one is in his 30s. He just came to Christ, been a regular attender,
Mm.
and was seeking the Lord, and the Lord recently led him to Christ. So funny because he came to Christ in the shower. The Lord just convicted him of all of his sin, and just literally washed him in the shower with the waters of regeneration. And so funny was we're talking about it in Sunday school and rejoicing. He was like, "Y'all, you're making too much of me and all this," and we're like, "No, we're not. You didn't do a thing." And one guy actually said, "Yeah, you're in the shower, but you missed a spot, man. You couldn't wash that part of you." And everybody just busted out laughing. And so, but it's great because you've got white collar and blue collar there together worshiping, and
Fantastic.
it's very sweet, very sweet.
Yeah. Um, so do you think that, when how long have you been there now?
I've been here since 17, so
Okay.
6 years. July 4th weekend is 6 years.
Right. So the PCA, I mean, we typically have traditional models of church planting that we've used. Do those models work the same in a small town rural context? Or how
Well,
would you say it's been different?
we're they thought that they had a core group of people that were interested in this plant, so they thought, yeah, this is a presbytery plant that we see. There's people who are desiring to see this church plant happen in this community, but the reality of it was really there was only one guy who was interested in it,
Mm.
and a bunch of other people that were like, "Man, come on, we'd love to have y'all in the community," but not necessarily involved where they were involved. And so we kind of dealt with the pain of that a little bit, where we were naturally, we thought it was going to be, we got some help to start, but in reality, it was a parachute drop, scratch plant, which was our family moving there, our family starting, build connections, build bridges, start bringing people in, gathering, and then launch a church. And so, yeah, traditional church planting model of, well, I don't know if there is a traditional church planting model. I look at the scriptures and I see apostolic church planting, where you go to a new area, you preach the gospel, you tent make or whatever you got to do. And I feel like that's what we've been doing in Scottsboro. And I wouldn't highly recommend that style for a lot of places in the country, but rural towns, it works well if someone's got a heart for it. Um, but I do think if somebody is from that area, that gives them a heck of an edge, a
Mm.
heck of a lead on their connections and whatnot. I mean, my name is Dieter Paulson, and so I sound like I just got off a boat from Norway, coming into this, North Alabama town. They're like, "Your name's Dieter? What kind of name is Dieter?" I mean, it's funny the kind of comments that you get. I mean, and people were suspicious because they'd never really known a church planter, and so they were like, one lady said, "I think you're actually an FBI agent," and I mean, she's with the Chamber of Commerce, so she's not like some blue collar person in the town. She's a white collar person, but she was like, "I just not sure about this whole church planting thing." So
Wow. So, we have a few minutes left here.
yeah,
You got on the ground. What were some of the most uh, helpful things that you did?
I think some of the biggest things, I mean, just connecting in any way that you can, by coaching, by being present in people's lives, um, being involved with the schools that your kids are involved with, being involved with, some local agencies. I mean, I got to know other pastors. I started a ministerial association because there wasn't one.
Great.
And really, we're not all inclusive. We did kind of select who was going to be a part of it because we didn't want it to be one of the ecumenical types of groups. We wanted it to be a gospel focused ministers association. Guys that are committed to preaching the word faithfully.
Right.
And so, yeah, now that I'm doing what I'm doing, and in a sense talking about some of the future in the next couple of years, some of these guys, you started a really neat network here, and you're the catalyst for what we're doing. And we even do a Good Friday community service that's stellar. I mean, it's probably one of the most gospel centered, Christ honoring services that anybody will ever experience all year long. And it's
Wow.
because everybody's focused on Christ, and what he's accomplished for us on the cross. But it's just rich. And anyways, but God's, just putting yourself in the community, building a parish, building a church. I mean, I came up with that phrase because as you build connections with people in the community, not all those people are going to join the church or be part of the church, but you could still be doing kingdom work as you make connections with people at the gym, people at the stores, at the restaurants, schools. And so that's pretty much what we've done. And COVID kicked us in the teeth. We lost our whole first core group.
Wow.
And so my elders were like, keep plugging along, Dieter, go find a building. And I'm like, I just lost my people. Why do we need to find a building? But there was wisdom in that, because over the next year, we renovated a building and everybody in the community watched this ugly building turn pretty. And they saw something happening. And then we put a sign up with my name on it. And people began, I think, to go, oh my goodness, that guy that we were wondering about, here he is. And he's contributing to the community. He's a known quantity. And man, now I go to the dealership and all these guys could run up to me and say, hey, and, hang out with me. And I had them all, a bunch of dudes in one guy's office who's like the president of the dealership there. And we're in there talking, and he walks in, and I'm like, man, I'm so sorry, I'm keeping your guys from working. And he said, man, Dieter, you have every right to be in here talking to my guys. I love this.
Oh,
and so
that's great.
pretty
Wow.
cool.
That is very cool. So if you were looking for one or two characteristics in a church planter to go to a small town, rural place, what would you look for? What are the top things that you would look for?
I mean, I think he's got to be a natural people person. It's just, I don't think it's why, I don't think introverts would probably do well. But of course, I'm in an environment where I've had to be really connected with a lot of people, and I am a people person. But a lot of rural towns, I mean, you need to be able to be humble, and you need to go, God, you're going to build your church. Because as much of a networker as I am, and a people person as I am, I'm not good enough, hip enough, cool enough, whatever, to draw all these people to be part of a church. That's God's job. He's the true church planter. And so humility, a little bit of crazy. I think that somebody says, you know what, man, I don't want the traditional put me in a big church, pay me a big salary. I want to. I've got an evangelistic heart and mindset where I want to see what God will do, and it's okay that I can't see it. I mean, I think a guy who has the faith to say, I don't see this, but I can in here. I mean, God did that on my heart before I came to Scottsboro.
Wow.
I mean, it was literally like I'd wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning, and this is what I would do when I get on the ground. And then I was like, wait a minute, I'm talking like I'm already there. I need to tell these guys that I'm really interested in this so that they don't find somebody else. And, was the town everything that my wife and I had ever dreamed of? No. I mean, I had people say, you moved from Charlotte, North Carolina to Scottsboro? Why? I mean, this is not idyllic or ideal comparatively to that. And I said, well, it's not about that. It's about the calling. And we were called to minister to people in Scottsboro, and in God's providence, we're loving what we're doing there, and we do have people coming from the greater Scottsboro area, and even some outside of Scottsboro, and so it's becoming kind of a regional church, which is interesting because we want to be a church planting church that maybe grows to about 100, 150, and then next mission church. So I think, somebody who doesn't want to just have the same old, comfortable, but somebody who's ready for an adventure, somebody who's a natural evangelist, who's humble, who does have a heart
Mm,
for seeing God build something. I mean, I think people have said that about me. Dieter, I look at your resume. I sometimes look at my resume and I look like I don't know what I want to do when I grow up, because every 5 or 6 years, it looks like I've changed what I've been doing. But honestly, the theme is that I'm a builder, and
mhm.
and so I think looking for that in someone who wants to build something. Now, some planters are builders and then they move on and build something else, like me. But other guys might be a builder who then says, "This is my baby, and I want to parent this baby." So,
Right. Right. That's interesting.
yeah.
I think, and just hearing you talk through all that, how you've gotten involved in Scottsboro, you in a small town, it seems like you really do. Um, you're able to have a fairly significant impact relatively quickly if you're willing to get in there and roll up your sleeves and get to know the community, which I think is somewhat unique to a small place. Like
Yeah.
you put your name on the building and people go, "I know that guy,"
Hmm.
because you've
Yeah.
well, that's fantastic. Well, we're about out of time here, but I just so appreciate your heart, your ministry, just hearing you talk about your evangelistic heart and loving people and how well you've done that is incredibly encouraging.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Well,
Pray that the Lord raises up more and more guys.
amen.
I think the cost of ministry is high, but the blessings and the beauty of it is so much greater than the hard things.
Oh,
So
yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and I feel like we're going to see God raise up more guys, but I think us being connected with people and pouring into people's lives, it's like the guys that I'm pouring into in Scottsboro. I mean, I don't know, one of these dudes could be an ex church planner,
right,
for one of our small towns nearby.
that's right.
Um, we just never know. And so we need to kind of be thinking in that, in that vein. I mean, the guy that I have that I've been very encouraged by that's coming to our discipleship group, I mean, he's a natural evangelist. I mean, I got him to meet Al Dayhoff, and Al was sharing all this stuff, and we got in the car, and this guy who's a welder full time, by the way, he goes, "Man, I'm encouraged. Everything he said that he was doing, I'm doing."
That's awesome. That's
And I
awesome.
was like, "Dude, that's really cool."
Really cool.
So, yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, man. We're out of time.
All
Uh,
right, bud.
we'll catch up again.
Sounds good, buddy. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
All right, bud. See you. Bye bye.